The wallet lay against the hospital entrance pillar, expensive Italian leather catching the harsh fluorescent light bleeding through the glass doors. Before we continue, thank you for spending your time with this story. If you're enjoying it so far, please watch till the end and subscribe. It truly helps the channel and lets me bring you more powerful stories like this one. Mary Ramey almost walked right past it, her mind trapped in room 847 where her 19-year-old sister Emma lay connected to machines that beeped out the rhythm of a failing body. At 26, Mary's shoulders already carried the weight of responsibilities that had aged her beyond her years. Her faded nurse scrubs were worn thin from too many hospital shifts, and her canvas sneakers, held together with duct tape and determination, spoke of someone who knew the exact cost of a subway token versus walking 12 blocks in the cold. Someone who could stretch a can of soup into 2 meals and knew which convenience stores let expired coupons slide. She stooped to pick up the wallet, glancing around to see if anyone had dropped it recently. The late evening Brooklyn street was emptying of its rush-hour crowd, exhausted healthcare workers and visiting families all moving with that hollow-eyed shuffle that came from spending too much time in places where people died. No one looked back. No one was searching the ground in panic. The cold wind bit harder, and Mary tucked the wallet inside her cardigan, hurrying toward the shelter of the parking garage overhang. Once protected from the bitter October chill, she carefully opened the leather billfold. The first thing she noticed was the quality. This wasn't something bought at a department store, but custom-crafted with meticulous stitching and butter-soft leather that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Inside, a driver's license showed a striking man with intense dark eyes, slicked back hair, and a neck tattoo barely visible above the collar of what looked like an expensive shirt, William B. Norris. The address listed was in Red Hook, one of those newly gentrified waterfront areas where Mary had never set foot. Behind the license was a plain business card reading, Norris Import, Export, with only a phone number. No credit cards. Just that and cash. A lot of cash. Mary's fingers trembled as she counted. $5,000 in crisp $100 bills. $5,000. The exact amount the insurance company had refused to cover for Emma's experimental treatment. The exact amount that stood between her baby sister living or dying within the next 2 weeks. No one would know. The hospital security cameras didn't reach this far into the garage. William B. Norris clearly had money to spare. What was $5,000 to someone who carried it around like pocket change? No one would ever know. Mary stood in the doorway of room 847, watching the monitors track her sister's failing body. Emma's once vibrant 19-year-old face had hollowed out, her dark hair thin against the starched white pillow. The leukemia had come back with a vengeance, and this time Dr. Patel had been brutally honest. Weeks, not months. There's an experimental treatment, he'd said that morning, his eyes filled with the practiced sympathy of someone who delivered death sentences daily. Promising results in clinical trials. But your insurance company classified it as investigational. They won't cover it. $5,000. That's what hope cost. Mary's entire existence could be measured in shifts and debt. Double shifts at Brooklyn Methodist's understaffed oncology ward, her scrubs faded from industrial washers, her sneakers held together with duct tape because new ones meant choosing between shoes and Emma's prescriptions. She made $42,000 a year before taxes. After rent on their shared studio in Sunset Park, Emma's current medical bills, and the minimum payments on the credit card she'd maxed out during Emma's first remission, she had maybe $200 left each month. She'd already sold everything of value, their mother's jewelry, her own laptop, even her father's police academy ring, though that had nearly killed her. The wallet sat heavy in her cardigan pocket as she rode the elevator down 6 hours later, her shift finally over. $5,000 in cash. The exact amount. It felt like fate, like God himself had dropped it at her feet. In the parking garage, she pulled it out again under the flickering fluorescent lights. William B. Norris stared up at her from the license photo, dark eyes that seemed to see through the camera, sharp features, that neck tattoo. She'd Googled Norris Import, Export on her phone during her break. The results had been sparse. A business registration. A warehouse address in Red Hook. No website. No social media. Just a phone number and whispers on local forums about keeping away from that area after dark, and not the kind of imports you declare at customs. Mary thought of her father. Officer James Ramey, killed 4 years ago stopping a bodega robbery. The thief had gotten away with $87 in her father's life. At his funeral, his partner had told her, "Your dad could have looked the other way 1,000 times. Could have made his life easier." But Jimmy believed that integrity isn't negotiable. You either have it or you don't. Her hands shook as she pulled out her cracked phone. Emma had 2 weeks, maybe 3. Every hour mattered. She dialed the number on the business card. "Yeah." A rough voice answered. "I found a wallet belonging to William B. Norris. I'd like to return it." Pause. "Where are you?" "Brooklyn Methodist Hospital." "Stay there." 20 minutes later, Mary stood outside a warehouse on a desolate Red Hook street where broken streetlights created pools of shadow between rusted loading docks. A black Mercedes idled near the entrance, its windows tinted dark as secrets. She clutched the wallet to her chest and walked toward the door, toward a world her father had spent his life fighting against, carrying 5,000 reasons to turn back and one dying reason to keep going forward. The door opened before she could knock. The warehouse interior smelled of diesel fuel and something metallic Mary couldn't identify. Industrial lights hung from chains 30 feet up, casting harsh shadows across concrete floors stained with decades of unknown commerce. Security cameras tracked her from every corner, their red lights blinking like predator eyes. Men in dark jackets leaned against shipping containers, their casual postures belied by hands that stayed near their waistbands, near the telltale bulges beneath expensive leather. A man materialized from the shadows, 6'4", built like a boxer who'd never learned to lose. His neck bore the same intricate tattoo she'd glimpsed on Norris's license, serpentine designs wrapping up toward his jaw. Dead eyes assessed her with the cold efficiency of someone who'd sized up threats for a living. "Victor," he said, not offering his hand. "Follow me." They passed through corridors lined with crates marked in Cyrillic, climbed metal stairs that rang under their footsteps. Victor knocked twice on a frosted glass door, then pushed it open without waiting for response. The office contradicted everything outside. Persian rugs, mahogany desk, leather chairs that probably cost more than Mary's car. Behind the desk sat William B. Norris, his dark hair slicked back with precision, a charcoal suit cut so perfectly it seemed painted on. The neck tattoo extended up past his collar. A serpent or dragon, impossible to tell where it ended. His eyes, those same intense eyes from the license photo, locked onto her with an intelligence that made her throat tighten. "Miss Ramey." He gestured to the chair. "You have something of mine." Mary placed the wallet on the desk, unopened. "Everything's there." "I didn't take anything." Norris flipped through the bills, counting with practiced speed, then looked up. $5,000. Most people would have kept at least some. "I'm not most people." "Clearly." He pushed an envelope across the desk. 10% finder's fee. Standard. Mary stood. "I don't want your money. I just wanted to return what wasn't mine." The room went silent. Victor shifted by the door. Norris leaned back, his expression unreadable, surprise maybe or suspicion. "Everyone wants something. Not your money." The words came out stronger than she felt. "You're a nurse at Methodist," Norris said, his tone shifting to something analytical. "Oncology ward. You have a sister, Emma, 19, leukemia. 3rd floor, room 847. Insurance denied her experimental treatment. You need $5,000 by next Friday or she dies." Mary's blood went cold. "How do you? And yet you're standing here, refusing $500 you earned honestly." He steepled his fingers. "That's either profound stupidity or genuine integrity. I'm betting on the latter." "I should go." "I have a position available," Norris continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Consultant work. Light administrative duties. $85,000 a year, full benefits, signing bonus of $10,000. You start Monday." The number hit her like a physical blow. "Doing what? Does it matter?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Think about it. You have my number." At home, Mary's laptop glowed in the dark studio. Search results painted a picture that made her hands shake. William Norris suspected organized crime connections, federal investigations, money laundering allegations never proven. The forums were more explicit. Red Hook's new king took over the waterfront after the Gambino family's decline, untouchable. She'd just refused a bribe from the Mafia. And he'd offered her a job instead. Dr. Patel's voice was gentle but final. Mary, Emma's platelet count is critical. If we don't start treatment by Thursday, her system won't be strong enough to handle it. I'm sorry. 48 hours. 2 days between Emma and the end. Mary sat in the hospital chapel at 3 a.m., the only place quiet enough to think. The pews smelled of lemon polish and desperation. How many people had sat here bargaining with God? Her father's funeral had been in a church like this, all dark wood and stained glass filtering weak sunlight onto a flag-draped coffin. Integrity isn't negotiable, his partner had said. You either have it or you don't. But Jimmy Ramey had never watched his daughter die. He'd never had to choose between principles and a heartbeat. Would he have kept his integrity if it cost Emma's life? Would he have expected Mary to? She pressed her palms against her eyes until she saw stars. $85,000. Emma's treatment fully funded. All she had to do was work for a man who hurt people, who broke laws, who built his empire on the backs of other families suffering. All she had to do was become everything her father had fought against. At dawn, she stood outside the Red Hook warehouse again. Victor opened the door without surprise, as if he'd been expecting her. Norris sat at his desk, coffee steaming in a porcelain cup. He didn't look surprised either. I need honesty, Mary said without sitting. What exactly is your business? What would I really be doing? Sit down, Miss Ramey. No. If I'm going to sell my soul, I need to know the price. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. 3 weeks ago, an accountant I trusted for 15 years turned FBI informant. Cost me a shipment worth $2 million and nearly my freedom. I had the wallet dropped outside the hospital on purpose, with your name on a note inside telling whoever found it that you needed exactly $5,000 for your sister. I wanted to see what kind of person you were. The air left Mary's lungs. You tested me? Everyone has a price. I needed to know if you could be bought. He stood, walked to the window overlooking the warehouse floor. I import things that don't go through customs. I loan money at rates banks won't touch. I hurt people who hurt my business and I break laws daily. But I honor my word, Miss Ramey. Always. That FBI accountant? I never touched his family even after his betrayal. That's my code. And what do you want from me? Consultation. Medical expertise for my people who can't go to hospitals. Administrative work. Legitimacy, a clean face in case federal eyes look my way. He turned to face her. And loyalty. Complete, absolute loyalty. In exchange, Emma gets her treatment. Every penny. Every medication. Every follow-up. And you get $85,000 annually for as long as you work for me. Mary thought of Emma's hollow face, the monitors counting down her sister's final hours. She thought of her father's funeral, his partner's words about integrity. But Jimmy Ramey had died for $87. Emma wouldn't die for principle. I accept, Mary whispered. But I won't hurt innocent people. Then we have an understanding. Norris extended his hand. Welcome to the organization, Miss Ramey. She shook it, telling herself she'd find a way to stay clean in a dirty world, knowing she was already lying. The experimental treatment worked like a miracle Mary had stopped believing in. Within 72 hours, Emma's color returned. The hollow look faded from her eyes. Dr. Patel used words like remarkable response and cautious optimism, while Mary signed forms she didn't read, checks appearing in accounts she didn't question. Her new office occupied the second floor of a legitimate Norris shipping company in downtown Brooklyn. Floor-to-ceiling windows, ergonomic chair, a salary deposited every Friday that made her old nursing income look like charity. Her title, healthcare compliance consultant. Her duties, attend meetings, review employee injury reports, smile. She was window dressing. A wholesome face for a corrupt empire. The realization hit during her first strategy meeting. 12 men in expensive suits discussing inventory discrepancies and collection protocols. Criminals speaking in euphemisms while Mary sat at the table like a priest blessing sin by proximity. They wanted her nursing scrubs visible when federal agents sniffed around. They wanted her sister's tragic story ready for any journalist digging too deep. They'd bought her integrity and were getting their money's worth. The second week, Norris summoned her to the warehouse. Educational purposes, Victor said, his massive frame blocking her exit. Inside, a man knelt on the concrete floor, zip-tied and sobbing. Blood already darkened his shirt. "This is Marcus Chin," Norris said calmly, circling the kneeling figure. "He stole from me. 40,000 in product, sold to a competing organization." He looked at Mary. "What do you think his punishment should be?" Her throat closed. I don't. You work for me now. You should understand consequences." Norris nodded to Victor, who produced a baseball bat. The sound of wood meeting bone echoed through the warehouse. Controlled, precise strikes that broke but didn't kill. Mary tried to look away, but Norris's voice cut through her nausea. "Watch. This is what loyalty means in my world." Afterward, Victor drove her home in silence. At her door he said quietly, "Boss wanted you scared, not traumatized. Chin will heal. He'll walk again. Could have been worse." "That's supposed to comfort me? In this world?" "Yeah." His expression softened slightly. "You need anything, you call me. Not everyone here is a monster." That night, Emma looked healthier than she had in months, sitting up in her hospital bed watching Netflix. "Mare, where did the money really come from? You keep saying savings, but we didn't have savings." The lie came easier than it should have. "Hospital Hardship Fund. Special program Dr. Patel recommended." Emma squeezed her hand. "You're the best sister anyone could have." Mary smiled until Emma fell asleep, then cried in the bathroom until her eyes swelled shut. She left the hospital at midnight, exhausted and hollow. The parking garage was nearly empty, her footsteps echoing off concrete. A woman leaned against Mary's car, 40s, dark suit, badge clipped to her belt. "Mary Ramy? Special Agent Reyes, FBI." She held out a manila folder. "We need to talk about your employer." Inside were photographs. Crime scenes. Bodies. Surveillance shots of Norris directing operations. And one photo of Mary herself, sitting at that strategy meeting, smiling like she belonged. "You're in over your head," Reyes said softly. "Let me help you before it's too late." Mary stared at the evidence of what she'd become, Emma's laughter still echoing in her memory. Too late had been 3 weeks ago. Agent Reyes left her card and a deadline. 72 hours to decide between cooperation and a federal obstruction charge that would destroy everything. "We know you're not dirty yet," Reyes had said. "Help us before you become complicit." Mary couldn't sleep. At 4 a.m. she sat at her laptop searching for answers in digital archives. William B. Norris appeared in a 15-year-old Brooklyn newspaper obituary she almost missed. Survived by brother William, age 19. The deceased was Sophia Norris, age 16, leukemia. Died at Brooklyn Methodist after insurance denied experimental treatment. The same hospital. The same disease. The same death sentence that had nearly claimed Emma. Mary's hands trembled on the keyboard. Norris hadn't just tested her. He'd seen himself in her desperation. He'd built an empire on the ashes of a system that had failed them both. She was still staring at Sophia's obituary when headlights flooded her apartment. Too bright. Wrong angle. She moved to the window just as her phone buzzed. "Victor, don't leave your apartment." Too late. She'd already left for her hospital shift an hour ago. The parking garage ambush happened fast. 2 men materialized from behind concrete pillars as Mary approached her car. Dark suits, unfamiliar faces, hands reaching for her arms. "Mr. Castellano wants to talk," one said, his grip bruising her wrist. Gunshots exploded through the enclosed space, deafening, final. Victor appeared like an avenging angel, weapon drawn, 2 of Norris's soldiers flanking him. Mary's attackers dropped, blood pooling on oil-stained concrete. Victor grabbed her, shielded her body with his own, rushed her to an SUV that materialized from nowhere. She threw up in the gutter while Victor stood guard, his gun still drawn. Norris met them at the warehouse, his usual composure fractured. "Castellano family," he said, pacing. "They think taking you weakens me." He stopped, looked at her with something raw in his eyes. "Are you hurt? You had them killed?" Her voice sounded distant, not her own. "Right in front of me. They would have tortured you for information, then killed you anyway. This isn't a game, Mary. Like your sister wasn't a game?" The words escaped before she could stop them. "Sophia. Brooklyn Methodist. 16 years old. Same disease as Emma." Norris went completely still. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "How did you? I needed to understand why you tested me. Why you cared about integrity." Mary's exhaustion broke through her fear. "The system killed your sister. So you built something outside the system. And became the monster I swore I'd destroy." He sat heavily, suddenly looking older. "Every law I break, every person I hurt, I tell myself it's so no one else watches their sister die for lack of money. But Sophia would hate what I've become. Emma would hate what I'm becoming." They sat in silence, two people drowning in different waters, recognizing each other's struggle. "The FBI approached me," Mary finally said. "They want me to inform on you." "I know. Agent Reyes." She's persistent. Norris met her eyes. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing yet. She gave me 72 hours. And then?" Mary didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Norris stood. "Victor will take you home. Triple security from now on." Back at her apartment, Mary noticed it immediately. Her laptop moved 3 inches left. Coffee mug repositioned. Someone had been inside, searching carefully enough to almost hide it. Someone in Norris's organization was watching her. And she had no idea who to trust anymore. Dr. Patel's smile was genuine for the first time in months. "The scans are remarkable, Mary. Emma's in remission. Complete remission. If these results hold for 6 months, we can start talking about full recovery." Mary should have felt joy. Instead, she felt the weight of every blood-stained dollar that had bought this miracle. Her role had evolved beyond window dressing. Norris now consulted her on business expansion, medical clinics in immigrant neighborhoods, pharmacies in underserved areas. Legitimate fronts that clean dirty money while providing actual community services. She reviewed incorporation documents, advised on healthcare regulations, smiled at ribbon-cutting ceremonies. She was laundering blood money and calling it charity. The ledgers told the real story. Cash from imports flowing through clinics, transformed into clean revenue that funded political campaigns and real estate investments. Mary's signature appeared on dozens of documents. Her nursing license, her clean record, her wholesome tragedy legitimizing an empire built on violence. She'd become exactly what Agent Reyes had warned about. Emma found the documents by accident, searching Mary's apartment for a phone charger. Mary came home to find her sister sitting on the couch, manila folders spread across the coffee table, tears streaming down her face. "Norris Import-Export," Emma said, her voice hollow. "William B. Norris. The mob boss. That's who paid for my treatment." Mary's carefully constructed lies crumbled. "Emma, I can explain. You're working for the Mafia?" Emma stood, backing away like Mary had become something infectious. "All those meetings, the new clothes, the money, you sold yourself to criminals? For me? To save your life? I would rather die." Emma's scream echoed off the walls. "Dad died fighting people like Norris, and you're helping them? Laundering their drug money through medical clinics. It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." Emma grabbed her jacket. "Every pill I took, every treatment, it's paid for with blood. Someone's daughter died so I could live. Don't you see that? I see you breathing." Mary's composure shattered. "I see you alive instead of dead. That's what I see." "Then you're not looking hard enough." Emma's voice broke. "The sister I knew wouldn't recognize what you've become." She left, slamming the door so hard the frame cracked. Mary was still sitting in the wreckage when Norris called. "We need to meet. No. It's urgent." The warehouse conference room held only Victor and Norris, both looking grim. Norris slid a folder across the table. Financial records, communications, meeting transcripts. Everything. Someone's been feeding information to both the FBI and the Castellanos, Norris said. Every operation compromised. Every safe house exposed. They knew about Mary before I hired her. They knew about the wallet test. Who? Mary's voice was barely audible. Someone close. Someone I trusted completely. Norris pulled out surveillance photos. I had everyone monitored. Found the leak yesterday. He placed a final photograph on the table. Luca Moretti. Norris's second in command. The man who'd stood beside him for 20 years, since they were kids running Brooklyn streets together. In the photo, Luca sat across from Agent Reyes at a coffee shop, passing documents beneath the table. My oldest friend, Norris said softly. My brother in everything but blood. Victor's expression was stone. Orders, boss? Norris stared at the photograph for a long moment. When he looked up, his eyes found Mary's. You have a choice to make. Walk away now. Emma's treatment continues, you keep your salary for 6 months but you're out. Or stay, accept what happens next, and understand there's no redemption after this. Mary thought of Emma's horror, her father's ghost, the person she used to be. She thought of the remission that wouldn't exist without blood money. What happens to Luca? She asked. Justice. My kind. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Mary closed her eyes and made her choice. Luca thinks you're his insurance policy, Norris said, spreading blueprints across his desk. He's been feeding information about you to the FBI, making you look complicit enough to face charges. He believes you'll flip on me to save yourself. Mary studied the warehouse layout, her new office feeling smaller with each passing second. So you want to use me as bait? I want to force his hand. Make him commit fully to whatever play he's planning. Norris looked up, his dark eyes searching hers. But I won't order you to do this. It has to be your choice. What choice? Mary's laugh was bitter. I'm already drowning. Might as well swim towards something. Agent Reyes cornered her the next day outside Emma's hospital room, her patients clearly exhausted. Last chance, Mary. We have enough to charge you as an accomplice. Money laundering, racketeering conspiracy. You'll do 15 years minimum. Then charge me. Don't be stupid. Help us bring Norris down and you walk away clean. Mary met the agent's eyes. There's no clean anymore. There's just different shades of dirty. Your father would be ashamed. The words hit like a physical blow, but Mary didn't flinch. Probably. But Emma's alive and he's dead. I chose which tragedy I could live with. Inside Emma's room, her sister looked healthy for the first time in 2 years. Color in her cheeks, strength in her movements. She didn't look at Mary when she entered. Dr. Patel says if this holds for 3 more months, I'm officially cured, Emma said to the window. 95% survival rate. Emma? Don't. Just don't. Emma finally turned, eyes red but dry. You saved my life. I'll never forgive you for how you did it, but I'm alive because of you. I don't know what to do with that. Neither did Mary. That night, Norris found her in her office long after everyone had left. He carried 2 glasses and a bottle of scotch that probably cost more than her former monthly salary. You don't drink, Mary said. Special occasions. He poured, handed her a glass. I need to tell you something before tomorrow. Don't? Mary recognized the look in his eyes, the same vulnerability she'd seen when talking about Sophia. Whatever you're about to say, it makes this harder. I'm falling in love with you. The words came out raw, unpolished. Maybe already have. You see me, the monster and the man, and you don't look away. No one's ever done that. Mary's hand trembled around the glass. I care about you. God help me, I do. I see why you became this, even if I hate what you are. That's more than I deserve. They sat in silence, 2 damaged people finding comfort in mutual destruction. The warehouse meeting was set for midnight. Luca would come thinking Mary had agreed to testify, bringing evidence to seal both their immunity deals. Instead, Norris's security would be waiting, ready to end 20 years of brotherhood with a bullet. Mary arrived at 11 wearing a wire that broadcast to no one, a prop for Luca's benefit. Victor positioned men at every exit. Norris waited in his office, calm as death. At 11:47 Victor's voice crackled through the radio. "Boss, we got a problem. Multiple vehicles approaching. 2 directions." Norris moved to the window. "Castellanos?" "Yeah. But also," Victor's voice went tight. "FBI tactical team. Eastern approach. They're both hitting us simultaneously." Mary's blood went cold. "Luca didn't just betray you to one side. He sold us to both." Norris pulled his weapon. "And they're all coming for the same thing." The warehouse lights went out. Sirens wailed in the distance. The trap had been sprung, but they were the ones caught inside. Gunfire shattered the warehouse windows. Castellano soldiers poured through the southern entrance, weapons blazing. Victor's men returned fire from behind shipping containers, muzzle flashes illuminating the chaos like lightning strikes. Mary dropped behind Norris's desk as bullets punched through drywall. Her ears rang. Smoke burned her lungs. "Stay down." Norris shielded her body with his own, weapon drawn. Then the FBI breached, tactical teams flooding through the northern doors, voices screaming commands that collided with gunfire and curses in Italian. The gang war and federal raid merged into pure pandemonium. Through the smoke, a figure appeared in the office doorway. Luca, weapon raised, his face twisted with desperation. "She's my ticket out, William. Give her to me." "Luca." Norris rose slowly. "After 20 years, this is how it ends? You chose her over the family. Over me." Luca's gun shifted toward Mary. "She poisoned you. Made you weak." The shot came before Mary could scream. Norris fired once, center mass the way professionals do. Luca crumpled, his weapon clattering across the floor. Blood spread beneath his body, dark and final. "I'm sorry, brother," Norris whispered. The gunfire outside ceased. FBI tactical teams were winning, corralling Castellano soldiers against superior numbers. Through the broken window, Mary saw Victor and 3 loyalists forcing someone to his knees. Antonio Castellano, the rival family's boss, his expensive suit torn and bloodied. Norris moved to the window, his weapon steady. Mary followed. Below, Castellano looked up, defiance flickering in his eyes even facing execution. This was the old way: kill your enemies, rule through fear, perpetuate the cycle of violence that had consumed Brooklyn's underworld for generations. Norris pressed the gun to Castellano's temple. "William." Mary's voice cut through the chaos. "Don't. He tried to kill you. And killing him makes you exactly what everyone thinks you are." Mary pulled the USB drive from her pocket. The evidence she'd been compiling, every financial record, every illegal operation, everything needed to destroy Norris completely. "I have enough here to put you away forever." Luca gave me copies of everything before he turned. Victor's hand moved toward his weapon. The other loyalists tensed. "Or," Mary continued, "we choose something different. You let Castellano live. You surrender to the FBI. You cooperate. And maybe, we find a way to build something better from the ashes." Agent Reyes emerged from the smoke, weapon drawn, tactical team behind her. Her eyes widened seeing Norris with his gun to Castellano's head, Mary holding evidence, the entire organization's future balanced on a trigger pull. "Choose," Mary said softly. Norris looked at his gun, at Castellano, at the empire he'd built on violence and blood. He looked at Mary, the woman who'd refused his money, accepted his darkness, and somehow still believed in redemption. He lowered the weapon. "Agent Reyes," Norris said clearly, "I'm willing to negotiate. Full cooperation against the Castellano family in exchange for reduced sentencing. 5 years, protective custody, and immunity for my people who weren't involved in violent crimes." Reyes stared. "You're surrendering?" "I'm evolving." Norris kept his eyes on Mary. "Someone recently taught me that integrity isn't negotiable." The deal took 3 hours to formalize. Norris would serve 5 years in federal prison. His assets, $47 million in seized accounts and properties, would be liquidated. In the FBI vehicle before they took him away, Norris grabbed Mary's hand through the window. The money. Use it for good. Build the clinics we talked about, but do them right. No laundering. No blood. Just help people who the system fails. William. Promise me, Mary. Let something good come from all this destruction. She promised, watching as they drove him toward redemption or damnation. She couldn't tell which. Spring sunlight filtered through the hospital cafeteria windows where Mary and Emma sat with coffee neither of them was drinking. 6 months of remission. 6 months of awkward silences and carefully chosen words. Dr. Patel says I can go back to school in the fall, Emma said, tracing the rim of her cup. Maybe Columbia. Pre-med. Following in your sister's footsteps? Trying to understand them, maybe? Emma finally met her eyes. I'm still angry, Mare. But I'm alive to be angry, and that's because of you. I don't know how to reconcile those things. Neither do I. They sat in the silence of two people learning to forgive what couldn't be forgotten. The foundation ribbon cutting happened on a Tuesday. The Emma and Rose Foundation for Experimental Treatment, a free clinic in Sunset Park where families who'd been failed by the system could find hope. Mary had used Norris's seized assets exactly as he'd asked. Legitimate operations, no laundering, just healthcare for people drowning in medical debt. The first patient was a 7-year-old with the same leukemia that had nearly killed Emma and had killed Norris's sister Rose 30 years ago. Mary had cried signing the treatment authorization. The minimum security federal facility upstate looked more like a college campus than a prison. Mary signed in every other Saturday, walked through metal detectors that no longer made her flinch, sat in the visitor's room that smelled of industrial cleaner and second chances. Norris appeared in prison blues that somehow he still wore with dignity. He'd lost weight, gained reading glasses, carried books under his arm. Criminal justice theory, business ethics, psychology texts. You look different, Mary said. 3 college courses, twice weekly therapy, and forced introspection will do that. He sat across from her, their hands separated by a table bolted to the floor. How's the foundation? Mary pulled out her phone, showed him photos. The clinic's opening day. Children in treatment. Families crying with relief. Emma cutting the ribbon, healthy and whole. Rose would have loved this, Norris said softly. Using blood money to stop the bleeding. Your money. Your redemption. Our redemption. His eyes met hers, still intense but softer now. You could have destroyed me completely. Instead, you're building something that matters. You could have killed Castellano and run. Instead, you chose 5 years in here. Funny how love makes you do insane things. Mary's breath caught. They'd never used that word, not directly. William? I know. Prison romance isn't exactly storybook material. He smiled and it reached his eyes for once. But when I get out in 4.5 years, if you're still willing, I'd like to help run the foundation. Legitimately. No schemes, no angles. Just trying to be the man Sophia believed I could become. The man you already are, Mary corrected. On the drive home, Mary stopped at a red light and pulled her father's police academy badge from her purse. The one she'd sold during Emma's first illness, the one Victor had somehow recovered and returned to her anonymously last month. She placed it on the passenger seat next to the foundation's glossy brochure. Officer James Ramey had believed integrity was absolute. You either had it or you didn't. He died for that belief, righteous and pure. Mary had learned integrity was more complicated. Sometimes doing good required compromising with evil. Sometimes monsters deserved redemption. Sometimes survival meant getting your hands dirty while keeping your soul clean. An impossible balance she walked daily. Her father would have hated her choices. But Emma was alive. Dozens of children were receiving treatment. A criminal empire had been dismantled. And a man who'd built his life on violence was learning to build something better. Mary touched the badge, then the brochure. I hope this honors you, Dad, she whispered. Even if it's not the way you'd have chosen. The light turned green. Mary drove forward, carrying both her father's legacy and her own choices, knowing she'd never fully reconcile them. Some redemptions cost everything. Some were worth it anyway. Thank you for reading. If you enjoyed this story, kindly like, subscribe, and share for more stories like this.